Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 29th of September, so Friday, so I hope you will have a great day and great upcoming weekend. Now it's 12:30, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment, and I will start with short summary of the situation on the Ukrainian battlefield. According to Russian media reports and reports from Russian military channels, there is no significant changes on any of the sector of the front line. It's kind of operational pause or a deadlock, although both sides are preparing their next moves when it comes to southern sectors of the front line, Kherson region, Kherson direction, Zaporozhye direction, or so Donetsk direction, on this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. It's Ukrainian side that is preparing its second wave of counteroffensive. Although as time goes by, I have more and more doubts that Kyiv regime will be able to pull off this second wave of counteroffensive, but especially because activity of Russian Air Force and constant destruction of munition depots of Ukrainian armed forces, points of concentration of military personnel and equipment, especially in Kherson direction. Although Russian aviation is quite actively bombing and destroying munition depots and military equipment and manpower of Ukrainian army on South Donetsk and Zaporozhye sectors of the front line. Also, and when it comes to northern sectors and the central and northern sectors of the front line, let's say from Bakhmut and Seversk up to Kupiansk and entire Kharkov region, my understanding is that it's Russian forces that are preparing large-scale offensive operations, which may take place probably in the winter, but there are slight chance that we may see activization of Russian army before rainy season begins. Also, it all depends probably on weather conditions at this point, and we have quite a good indicator to assume that Russian side is preparing these large-scale offensive operations, because especially lately we are receiving on daily basis informations about destruction of crossings, for example, on Oskol River by Russian Air Force. And of course, we all know that Kupiansk, for example, this city is located on Oskol River and divided by this river almost in half. And I guess it's only logical to assume that by destroying crossings over the Oskol River, Russian side is trying to distract logistical lines of Ukrainian armed forces in these sectors of the front line, and therefore preparing its own offensive operations. And by the way, when it comes to individual sectors, it's a usual stuff: artillery duels between the sides, local scale skirmishes, constant fight to improve current positions, reckoning force operations, and of course drone wars that are playing significant role in this conflict. And probably a special military operation, this confrontation is the first one in history, in modern history, when drones are playing such a crucial role. And according to statistics, by the way, Russian side definitely has upper hand when it comes to drone wars, which may be indicator that Russian military industrial complex and private companies did manage to begin mass production of different types of drones. And of course, one may say that NATO member states are also sending drones to Kyiv regime, so Kyiv regime also has drones, which is true, by the way. But Russian side is much more effective, and that gives us one more indicator that Russian radio electronic warfare systems, Russian air defense systems and radio electronic warfare systems are just much better, not just equal, but much better than Western analogs, and therefore Russian drones are achieving much bigger success and have much bigger influence than Ukrainian drones. So this drone war is also have been won by Russian forces. I will say it now, and that's why we have more and more videos like this, by the way, It seems like Russian side has so many drones on its disposal that nowadays drones are used not just to distract some lightly armored vehicles of Ukrainian armed forces, artillery systems, and armored personnel carriers or radars, but also quite often Russian side uses drones to attack such heavily armored vehicles like MBTs, by the way, main battle tanks. And in this case, I did share on my Telegram page this video and photos. You can clearly see when two Russian FPV drones, extremely cheap by military standards, FPV drones which may cost from several hundred to maximum several $1,000. With two drones have been destroyed Swedish Stridsvagn 122 tank, by the way. This is STRV 122, which is based on German Leopard 2 tank, but it's more heavily armed. And this armor did not save this tank, is not it? And dear friends, this morning I did watch update from Dima, Host of Military Summary, and he did come up with a very interesting idea that perhaps Ukrainian militaries that are operating with on Western military equipment, especially Western-made battle tanks, are using first opportunity they get to flee these vehicles. And this particular instance can be quite a good proof of Dima's words, because this tank is located not on the front line, but quite far away on territory that is controlled by Ukrainian forces. And for whatever reason, maybe there was some slight damage done to tank, maybe it break down in the tank, and instead of pulling this tank away to repair, tank was left in the field, and of course Russian military intelligence find the location of this tank, and then two cheap FPV drones, cheap once again, by the way, by military standards, because several $100 or several $1,000, it's money, of course, for us ordinary people. But from military standpoint, I mean, it's cheap weapon, especially in comparison to a cost of this Stridsvagn tank. And I did see some articles about these tanks, and they cost at least 4 to 5 million euros. That's what I read, by the way. But anyway, this is it for short summary of the situation on the battlefield. I remind you once again that if you want to learn in detail about these local scale skirmishes between the sides, there are great channels that devote much more time to this topic. Military Summary channel, Defense Politics Asia, or DPA War. And of course a great channel of Alexander Mercuris, host of the Duran Show. They on daily basis provide us with great updates, and you can see links. If you are not familiar with these channels, you can see links as always under my video in the description box, where you can see many channels, my recommendations about many channels that I do watch on regular basis. And before I continue, by the way, let me also highlight that this project with several channels, including this one, exists solely thanks to support of members of our community, and I will be immensely grateful if you will also consider, if you find this project useful, I will be immensely grateful if you will also consider to support my work with the small donations through PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can see links on this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. That's been said, let's continue with some additional news. And RIA Novosti is reporting that during the previous night, early hours today, Russian Air Defense Forces shot down 11 Ukrainian drones over Kaluga and Kursk region. And some channels did report that one of the drones did manage to bypass Russian air defense systems in Kursk region and struck on one of the energo facilities, as a result of which several settlements in Kursk region end up in blackout. But for this moment, I'm quite sure engineering teams were working to restore energy supply, and for this moment, these settlements probably are receiving energy as usual. No reports about significant damage or casualties on the ground. Just this one instance when one of the Ukrainian drones did manage to dealt some damage to energy facility, but we are talking about nothing in significant scale. So in several hours time, these settlements receive energy again. And RIA Novosti is also reporting that according to information that we are getting from Ukraine, by the way, and Ukrainian media confirms this information, there was a sound of massive explosion in Kiev during the night, although there is no additional information what caused this explosion and where. No specifics at this moment, but well, if it was Russian strike, let's say by Kinzhal hypersonic missile, then it's quite possible that Russian side targeted some points of deployment of Ukrainian manpower, maybe warehouses where Ukrainian side hiding military equipment, or maybe some factory was targeted where military equipment is produced by Kiev regime, or maybe repaired. And let's continue. During the day, probably we will learn some more information about this explosion in Kiev, and of course I will share additional information on my Telegram and in the next updates. And this news, by the way, very interesting. Gazeta.ru is reporting, based on TASS news agency, that since Russian armed forces created a specific radio wave Volga radio channel, Volga 149.200, and this channel was created specially for Ukrainian military personnel, by the way, several months ago, somewhere around 3-4 months ago. That's when I first time heard about this wave, this radio wave. So since that time, about 10,000 Ukrainian military personnel did contacted Russian militaries using this radio frequency to lay down arms and surrender, especially in the southern sectors of the front. Where this Ukraine so-called counteroffensive is conducted. Well, number is quite impressive, isn't it? Number is quite impressive. I did spoke many times before, even yesterday, by the way, in yesterday's update, about increased instances when Ukrainian units are laid down arms and surrendering, and I did share many videos on my Telegram page with surrendering Ukrainian military personnel. And now we have this information that in last, let's say, 3-4 months, about 10,000 Ukrainian militaries made only right decision that they can made, lay down arms and surrender and save their lives. And by the way, in my understanding, this is a beginning of the end of Ukrainian armed forces as a more or less capable entity. I did predict before this Ukrainian counteroffensive will begun that this counteroffensive will be suicidal operation for Ukrainian armed forces and basically beginning of the end of Ukrainian army. And we definitely, in my understanding, are seeing now that beginning of end of Ukrainian armed forces as a more or less capable entity, and this number will significantly increase, I'm 100% sure, as time goes by. And at this moment, many of you may have questioned how many Ukrainian POWs are in holding Russia, and my understanding is that somewhere around 20-30,000 POWs probably are in Russian custody at this moment. Maybe more, by the way. Maybe more, because I guess that information is somewhat classified to make sure that Zelensky's regime will not harm relatives of POWs. let's continue now. And TASS news agency is reporting that U.S. congressmen made decision to send additional $300 million to Zelensky and his associates. Well, you know, Zelensky is a poor guy, by the way. He only has like a dozen or a few dozens of homes all around the world. And of course, he does need some more, isn't it? And his associates also. You know, those poor guys do need some additional billions and billions of U.S. taxpayers' money, man. And the U.S. congressmen are doing, well, good job for Zelensky and his criminal associates. This money flow is not stopping towards Kiev regime, and will continue at least for some time, for sure. And even though vast amount of this so-called Ukrainian aid will eventually end up on accounts of military-industrial complex of Western companies, especially in the U.S., especially of U.S. companies, and in pockets of corrupt politicians in EU member states and in US. Well, Zelensky and his associates also are receiving some money, isn't it? At least 10%. At least 10% is money for Zelensky only, I guess. And then Zelensky may give some few millions here and there to his criminal gang. But I mean, do U.S. Citizens even see this type of informations in mainstream media in the West? And if they do, how many of them are asking questions? Is it no problems anymore in U.S.? All problems have been resolved, and U.S. has become heaven on earth, and there is plenty of money left to, like, enrich Zelensky and his gang, or what the heck is going on, really? I mean, when citizens in the Western states gonna begin majority? I mean, majority. When this majority will start asking questions? At this point, by the way, we are talking about if we count all money that was formally sent to Zelensky, we are talking about more than 200 billion at this point. In less than 2 years, 200 billion. Can you imagine how huge scale of money laundering machine Ukraine did become? But to go back to this main point, I mean, when societies in the West gonna start asking questions? Yes, there are small groups in the US, in European states that are protesting this madness and demanding money to be spent on local issues in local communities and for local communities. But well, majority, I guess, don't really cares at this point, or maybe don't even have information how much resources have been sent to Zelensky, though. I don't know. But this is, I mean, this is tragic and laughable and tragic simultaneously. I mean, this constant flow of money towards that money laundering machine that Ukraine have become. When you know perfectly well that millions and millions of citizens of US are struggling with everyday life, millions and millions of citizens of EU member states are struggling with daily life, by the way, and at the very same time, these criminals that are ruling in US and EU member states are choosing to enrich themselves and their puppets in Ukraine, and are not spending this taxpayers' money on issues that are in Western states. I mean, this is pure madness. That's it, man. But anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that head of UK's armed forces made a quite interesting statement, and this is reported by British Times magazine. And according to this individual, head of general staff of United Kingdom, by the way, Admiral Tony Radakin, they did not expect in the UK and I guess in the West that Russian defense lines will be that strong. And this way, he did try to justify this abysmal and catastrophic Ukrainian counteroffensive, catastrophic failure of that so-called counteroffensive of Kiev regime. But by the way, what is interesting, if head of general staff of UK openly are saying that they did not expect that Russian defense lines will be that strong, what that says about intelligence services of UK or the Western world, by the way, in that matter. How they could not know? These intelligence services are receiving some billions and billions, probably tens of billions of dollars, pounds in case of UK and so on. And on what they're spending this money then, if they did not even knew, if they are unable to analyze even satellite images that they can clearly see, on which they clearly see these defensive lines of Russian armed forces. If they are such a low intellect people that they cannot analyze the just basic data, then well, that's quite a shame on secret services of UK and Western states, or this individual, this admiral, is lying. They knew perfectly well that they are sending Ukrainian forces to be sacrificed when they demand from Kiev this counteroffensive to begin. So why they did it then? Question arises. And I have an answer. Maybe because Washington and London, with the cooperation with Warsaw and some other capitals, Brussels, Berlin, Paris, probably, their plan was to make sure to get rid of basically all the forces in Ukraine that are more or less battle ready, so that when Poland and some other NATO member states, with active support of very same UK and US, will try to establish control over the western regions of this failed state, they will receive minimal resistance, because they will force all more or less battle-ready units of Ukrainian army, and not just that, but also more or less battle-ready, or let's say military age men of Ukraine that's still in Ukraine, to be sacrificed on the front lines, to be sent on the front lines, so that Russian side will neutralize all those units, and there will be no much left that can resist establishment of Western control over the western regions of Ukraine. It's logic to me. It seems logical, because I cannot believe that intelligence services of UK and US did not knew that Russian defense lines were strong enough to basically stop and then decimate all the Ukrainian brigades that will try to reach and then breach these defense lines. And they still push Kiev regime to conduct this so-called counteroffensive. So why they push Zelensky to sacrifice Ukrainian army? And I'm giving you explanation for it, because they want make sure that once Poland and some other NATO member states will try to establish control of the western regions of that failed state, they will receive as minimal resistance as possible. That's it. At this point, by the way, real topic of discussion, I'm quite sure, between major capitals is how Ukraine will be disintegrated, and which parts of modern Ukraine will be controlled by Russia, and which parts will be controlled by Poland, Hungary, Romania, and possibly Slovakia. That's all. After this conflict, there will be no more Ukraine on political map, as I said dozens of times, because that's how it's gonna be. That's it. But anyway, let's continue. And well, RT is reporting. And by the way, when one more interesting information is that according to reports of Russian Defense Ministry, since the beginning of the so-called counteroffensive, Ukrainian side lost about 80,000 military personnel. 80,000 military personnel. And if you remember, before the so-called counteroffensive began, there were different reports that strategic reserve of Ukrainian armed forces is something around 60 to 80,000. So at this point, Kyiv regime don't have any strategic reserve left. So this is also something to think about. Ukrainian army was sacrificed basically by Western so-called elites and their puppets in Kyiv. But anyway, let's continue. RT is reporting that Ukraine's F-16 training is jeopardized by US government shutdown. Well, this topic of F-16 is not going away, by the way, isn't it? And now these US so-called politicians in Congress and Senate, they are using this F-16 topic and topic of training of a Ukrainian pilot as a bargaining chip between each other. Because they all, majority of US congressmen and senators are corrupt as hell, by the way, isn't it? There is only few decent people, probably only few, by the way, decent people in Congress and Senate. Only few, that's it. Rest of them are just immensely corrupt. Call it whatever you want, and they are now trading between each other including with this topic of F-16s and training of Ukrainian pilots, with Ukrainian topic in general, because they use Ukraine as a tool, political tool, internally also, as if US citizens do care about Ukraine whatsoever. Vast majority of citizens of US probably would not find Ukraine on the map, and even more citizens of Ukraine probably would not tell you what city is capital of Ukraine, because they just don't care. They have very different priorities. They need to live their lives now, and there is plenty of issues to deal with in US itself. So why should the majority of US citizens care about some most corrupt regime in Europe? Come on. But these so-called elites of US, they become under influence of their own propaganda, and they are trying to use Ukrainian topic as a bargaining chip. If US citizens really do care about it, when in reality they, But when it comes to Western fighter jets itself, I said many times before that my understanding is that Kyiv regime will never have in its disposal any Western-made fighter jet whatsoever. Zelensky will never control any fighter jet of the NATO member, of production of NATO member states, not F-16s, F-18s, or any other US planes, not French Mirages or Rafales, not Swedish Saabs, by the way, Gripens. Only time when Western-made fighter jets will be introduced to Ukrainian theater will be when Ukraine become divided, when Poland basically and some other NATO member states will try to establish full control over the western regions of this failed state, and when they will simultaneously try to establish no-fly zone over these western regions. That's the only time when we will see, in my understanding, Western-made fighter jets. And formally, Brussels or Washington and London may say that this is Ukrainian pilots that are imposing this no-fly zone over the western Ukraine, and it's not us, it's them. When in reality, we all know that this will be fighter jets of NATO member states, and they will be operated by pilots of NATO states. But anyway, let's continue. And this is RIA Novosti's report, by the way, about Russian Air Force that did receive new bunch of Su-57 5th gen fighter jets, and also Su-35C, Su-35S 4th gen fighter jets. Well, good for Russian Air Force. Both these type of planes, Su-35 and Su-57, are actively involved in special military operation. They did have many of air-to-air wins when it comes to air combat, and I'm quite sure these planes also were participating in ground attacks too, and especially Su-35, by the way, because Su-57 is a 5th gen, extremely expensive, as I understand, and Russian side may use these fighter jets as only to air-to-air, long-range air-to-air combats, but Su-35 is also very agile. It can not just shut down aerial targets, but also attack ground targets. So probably Su-35 was participating in these ground attacks also. But anyway, let's continue. RT is reporting that Macron backs limited autonomy for restless French Iceland, or island, I should say. Well, Macron did visit Corsica on Tuesday, and he said that French constitution may undergo some changes to provide Corsica with a limited autonomy, which is well, somewhat victory for independence movement in Corsica, and same time quite significant setback, one more setback from for current French so-called elites, because seems like they are losing diplomatic and economical and political, any type of confrontation or influence in the Africa, and they are now losing also positions inside the France too. And one day, who knows, by the way, one day when this degradation of Western so-called elites and ruling class will reach certain point of no return, Corsica may end up in strong enough position to declare full independence from France, and Corsica not going to be exception. Many EU member states do have a significant issue of separatist movements. Spain, for example, we all know Basques want independence, Catalonians want independence. When it comes to UK, by the way, Scotland, I cannot understand why Scotland still remains in UK, by the way, when they have all rights to declare independence, and one day they may. There was a referendum in Scotland, and majority of Scots decide to remain in UK, at least for now. But well, historically speaking, it only will be right if Scotland at some point will become fully independent state. So UK has definitely some issues with separatism. I'm saying nothing about Northern Ireland, by the way, which is always a hotspot on UK's map. Denmark has a issue with separatism, because one part of Denmark is a French-speaking, as I understand, and other part of Denmark is speaks language of Netherlands. How you say Netherlands language? Dutch language? Yes, they speak Dutch. So basically, Belgium, not Denmark. Sorry, by the way, I messed up with Belgium. I'm talking about Belgium. Belgium is basically divided by language lines. Half is a French speaker, half is a Dutch speaker. And well, Denmark also has issues, because Greenland, locals in Greenland want to cut ties, some of them at least, cut ties and become independent. from Denmark, and maybe not all members of our community know, but Greenland formally is a part of Denmark. So there is many issues, man, in European states when it comes to some separatist movements. So France is not alone in this regard, and this promise from Macron to grant at least limited autonomy to Corsica definitely highlights how weak Paris have become because of current leadership of France. But anyway, let's continue. How long is this video? 35 minutes. No matter and how much I try to, you know, make this update short. I always like twice longer than you know 30-35 minutes. Anyway, RIA Novosti is reporting that President of Kazakhstan Kassym-Jomart Tokayev did made several interesting statements while giving interview to Kazinform news agency, and basically he said that Kazakhstan is not anti-Russia as some politicians are stating. He said that Kazakhstan is a partner, has a partnership with Russia, and simultaneously, by the way, Tokayev said that Kazakhstan is not participating in this parallel import operations that Russia did begun since Western elites imposed these thousands and thousands of sanctions. And well, Tokayev is basically contradicting himself, isn't it? If you have strategic relationships with Russia and if you are not anti-Russian, then why you are not participating in this parallel import operations? Why? I guess Moscow made a big mistake. Moscow made big mistake when Russian forces, together with Belarusian forces and forces of some other ODKB nations, you know, participate to secure Tokayev's government when there was a armed uprising in Kazakhstan to dismantle regime of Tokayev just about a year or two ago. Because Tokayev definitely acting against Russia, he is anti-Russian. He does reminds me Pashinyan somewhat. And Kazakhstan is in big trouble, by the way. If Tokayev will continue in this path, and his government, if they will continue these anti-Russian policies, if they continue to play with the Western so-called elites, then they will anger not just Moscow, by the way, but also Beijing. And if Moscow is quite reluctant to act hawkishly or to act with radical steps when it comes to states that Moscow wants to see as allies, then China, man, China probably don't give a single, you know, about Tokayev and his government and Kazakhstan whatsoever. Like, China sees Kazakhstan as a possible theater of anti-Chinese operations by West. And if China sees that this regime in Kazakhstan poses significant threat to China, then they will take him out. I have no doubt about it. They will just take him out straight away. They may even conduct military operation. And by the way, I guess it's only a matter of time, if matter of time, when Kazakhstan and some other states that are neighboring China will be destabilized by Western elites, exactly because exactly to use territories of these states to conduct some operations against China and to destabilize northern western regions of China. That's my reading of big picture, and well, I hope my reading of mistaken, because I don't want to see Kazakhstan to end up in troubles like in troublesome situations like Armenia end up because of this Pashinyan and his government. But anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that, yes, by the way, Russian foreign ministry did react on statements of Takoev, and well, statement from Moscow is quite calm, really. As I just said, man, Moscow is not in rush to make some strong steps towards states that Moscow sees as a friendly, but same time those states are acting kind of hawkishly towards Russia, like Armenia and Kazakhstan also. And well, according to statement of Russian foreign ministry, Moscow is hoping to continue this working, friendly, strategic, good relationships with Kazakhstan. And that's it, really. Moscow is never in rush to escalate, man. Never. But anyway, let's continue. And RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, Minsk did report, officials in Belarus did report that yesterday Polish helicopter twice did cross border with Belarus. And these type of instances, by the way, are occurring lately more and more often. Just a week or two ago, there was another instance when officials in Belarus did stated that Polish helicopters cross border with Belarus. And well, if this type of actions from Poland will continue, I guess it's only a matter of time when Belarusian or units or Wagnerites will shut down Polish helicopter. They are risking. Warsaw is risking significantly by acting this way, because I'm quite sure Wagnerites will shut down Polish any Polish aerial vehicle anytime. They just need green light. And Belarusian air defense systems also, by the way, very capable, and they can shut down anything that flies to Belarus from Poland. So Warsaw is acting very dangerously, and pilots on those helicopters should realize that they may be sacrificed by current leadership of Warsaw for some political and geopolitical games. Let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that, well, yet again, a statement from Russian foreign ministry about a decision of Armenia to ratify Rim Statute and to become a full member of that, whatever that is, that union of states that are recognizing Hague's International Criminal Court, which is a political tool, by the way, in hands of Western so-called elites. And, well, Moscow did make statement about it, Russian foreign ministry, and they did said that this step from Armenia to ratify Rim Statute will definitely influence relationships between the two sides, not in the good way, which is obvious, by the way. And nowadays we are receiving on daily basis these reports about deterioration of relationships between Russia and Armenia. And by the way, 1107 report was published on RIA Novosti that in Armenia, from Nagorno-Karabakh, already moved some 89,000 refugees. So this process of movement of Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh to Armenia is continuing, and eventually, I'm afraid there will be no Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh left, only, or maybe only few hundred or few thousand that will make decision to stay and trust their security in hands of Azerbaijani security forces or Baku or government of Azerbaijan in Baku. But vast majority of Armenians will already did flee, by the way, because 89% is already majority of Armenian residents of Nagorno-Karabakh. And this number may grow up to 120,000 in upcoming days. Definitely tragedy for Armenian community of Nagorno-Karabakh and for Armenians all around the world. Let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that in Russia, autumn conscription in army has begun, and this was stated by Contra-Admiral Vladimir Tsimlyansky, who is a member of Russian General Staff, and conscripts will not participate in military operations in new regions of Russian Federation, and they will not be sent to front lines for sure. And while talking about this topic, Contra-Admiral Tsimlyansky also said that at this moment there is no plans to conduct second wave of mobilization in Russia, and there is no such a need. I remind you, my friends, that just a few days ago, Dmitry Medvedev, if I'm not mistaken, former president and current deputy chairman of Russian Security Council, did make statement that more than 320,000 citizens of Russia did sign contract with Russian armed forces and volunteered themselves to serve, to participate in special military operations. So because number of volunteers that are willing to join Russian army is such a high, I guess at this point there is no need to conduct second wave of mobilization. But I will not be surprised if at some point in the future we will see mobilization in Russia. And let me continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that Rospotrebnadzor, Russian state institution, did make a decision, did give order basically, did issue a decree that all schools should go on quarantine if 20% of students are not attending school, which is right decision, by the way, but too late, I guess, because it's not even winter yet, and we, for example, my family, we did catch twice cold or flu, because schools are one of the major, I will say, spreaders of flu virus. And even without this, even before I see this information about decision of Rospotrebnadzor, I did say to my family members, you know what, and to my kids, if you see that your classmates are getting flu, and it's kind of not just one or two, but it's like half of the class, then just tell me about it, and we will stop going to school, just as a preventive measure. Because how many times you're not gonna get cold, man? As I said, already twice we get flu. So this decision is too late in my understanding, but the right decision for sure. Anyway, let's continue, and a few more news, and I'm quite upset, as you can see, because if you remember, all of us are grown-up people, by the way, and my statistics of YouTube does confirm this. And if you remember, when we were kids, we may get flu-like once, and that was it, isn't it? At least in Soviet Union, that was the case. But nowadays, it's rare occasion when you only get cold or flu or that type of virus only once in a season. It's always like twice or 3 times, and one may wonder from where these viruses are coming from, you know. Anyway, let's continue. And RT is reporting that oil prices jumped to highest in over the year, and they reach basically $100 for a barrel, almost $100, which is well, good news for several reasons, and also not that good for consumers of oil and oil products, but good reason because if there is increased demand on oil, then world economy is doing little better. That's an indicator for it, and also good news for oil exporters nations, because they will have more income, including Russia. So, but of course, for consumers of oil and crude oil and oil products, increase in price is not necessarily good news. And this is gonna be last update, last information for this moment. RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian Central Bank did make decision to prolong ban on, not a ban, but let me translate this sentence. So Central Bank extended restrictions, yes, restrictions on transfers of individuals abroad. This was a countermeasure of Russian Central Bank when Western so-called elites began imposing sanctions on Russian Federation and Russian financial and banking system. And we have now information that Central Bank did prolong this, extended these restrictions until 31st of March, and at this moment limit how much money one may transfer to abroad. Is, you're gonna laugh, by the way. You may think it's some kind of drastic measure or something like that. No, limit is $1 million. So this step of Central Bank in no way disturbs life of ordinary citizens. This measure was introduced by Central Bank to make sure that Western investors will not be able to withdraw their funds from Russia straight away, and to influence the stability of Russian economy this way in negative manner. Because and maybe this restriction was also for rich and super rich Russians, also to make sure that they will keep in Russia their assets. But when it comes to us ordinary people, this type of restrictions, they are not about us, by the way, because none of us have $1 million, and none of us probably will ever have $1 million, which is unfortunate, by the way. But you know, to be realistic, it is what it is. And this is it for now. I hope you will find this update interesting. Plenty of news. And if so, please consider to click that like button and leave some commentary about any topic you like. As I'm saying on every video, more likes and comments probably do influence algorithm, and I'm getting a little bit more chances to reach wider audience. And for very same reason, if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on any of the platforms that you are active on. And if you think this channel, this project is interesting, useful, has some potential and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, Please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, buy me a coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Once again, have a great day and wonderful upcoming weekend. Take care.